Welcome to the Crafty Mini. Today we're going to be making an alien bust from scratch. It's nothing I've actually attempted before. Very new to polymer clay, but thought I'd give it a go. And the idea being trying to get as much detail on this as I can, so when it comes to painting it up, it's going to pop a bit more. Never attempted something this big or as detailed as this before. The reason I'm going for an alien is I can be a bit more different with the features. And I don't have to be as stringent than, say, doing a human face, where there's going to be a lot of detail that I have to get right in order, otherwise it'll look strange. Whereas with an alien, in quotes, I can do pretty much anything I want. So starting off here with the designing, just coming up with some rough ideas of what I wanted. The inspiration I got was sort of like, for those of you who've played Starcraft and the Protoss, something like that with an elongated sort of mouth slash snout area, but that's quite flat, and then these small eyes and like a crest that goes at the top of the head. The actual bust itself does change slightly throughout the design process, but this is roughly what I'm going for at the start. So I'm sketching out a few ideas, if I want things like the sort of those predator braids on the sides of the head, things like that, rough sort of shapes, and then I do a more detailed sketch of what I'm looking for. It's pretty close to this in the end, but it does change a little bit. Now it took me a while, and when I've come to edit this footage, in order to get the sort of full effect, it is going to be over a couple of episodes this. So this first episode is going to be the initial design, which you're seeing now, blocking out the shapes, working on some of the detail till I get to that first bake. And then the second episode will be finishing off the actual sculpting and conforming the neck into the shoulders and basing it. And then the third episode will be the actual painting. So seeing it, I've not drawn for a long time, not since A level really. Done like sort of proper sketching, so I'm taking my time. It does take me a bit longer than it normally would. It's something I'm trying to get back into, is the sketching itself, because it's something I used to do all the time, and I'm trying to get back into it. So this sketch, it goes through a couple of different phases, changing things, changing details, but the rough shapes there, as I say, you've got the sort of quite a tight cranial cap, two small eyes, and then this flat mouth, and that's sort of the main shape, and it's quite elongated. One thing I'd say for anyone who's who's never used polymer clay before, I mean, I've only used it for a few smaller projects, the Pokemon series, they were tiny though. I mean, they were no bigger than, I think, 30mm tall, 40mm at most. It's just go for it, to be honest. Have fun with this. You're going to make mistakes. I mean, I have made plenty of mistakes on this bust as I'm looking at it now, the step that it's at. But just try it. Because the more things you do, there's certain processes, there's things you'll learn, you'll pick up mistakes you'll learn from. So there's some things I know not to do on the next bust that I try and make, and going from there. So I would recommend anyone gives polymer clay a go. I'm using Fimo at the moment because that's the block I want to get rid of. I've used that and Super Sculpey, and I've got to be honest, Super Sculpey I prefer working with. It's a lot tougher. And it takes a lot longer to work it into a manageable sort of texture, so you can actually start manipulating it and putting details on. It's a lot longer, but because it's a lot firmer, it holds its detail better. And I've never had an issue with anything baking. The Fimo, I've done three now, and each one has had some sort of crack that I've had to fix. Now I don't know if this is just a dodgy batch or if there's something I'm doing wrong, but if anyone sees anything in the video, let me know in the comments. Anything that I can learn, obviously I want to take on to future projects. So as we're coming up to the end of the design part of this video, one thing just make you aware of, so the narration is not going to be like other videos where I'm talking right the way through, because there's a lot of parts of this on the steps that I could have cut down more footage wise, but I've decided to keep in, so people who are new can follow along a lot easier. Anyone who's done it before can actually watch more of what I'm doing and maybe come up with areas that I need to improve. And also, to be honest, the actual process of making this is the first time I've done something this big and detailed from scratch, from my own design, rather than, you know, like say the Pokemon, for example, very simple cartoony style. But this is the idea of this. The attempting is to make like a proper bust that you would, in essence, buy and paint. So because of the effort that's gone into it, I've decided to keep more of the footage in. I mean, I've still cut it down, and that's why the episodes are going to be cut up, and so the narration will be in and out, but I'll only jump in and speak about stuff that I'm doing. But as I say, if anyone sees anything or has any tips, or even a channel that they can point me to for polymer clay, let me know. I mean, I will watch people like North of the Border and Ace of Clay, but I'm more than happy to look at others if anyone can and give me any recommendations. So we're coming up to the end of the sketching bit now. I'll speak to you in a moment when we come to the starting of the sculpture. Right, so this is something that I see a lot of people who use clay always start with, which is an armature. So I understand the fundamentals of this. I haven't got the exact equipment needed, the particular type of armature wire, for example, things like that. So, and also I'm trying to do this on a lower cost at the moment. So I understand with the foil, so it bulks out the sculpture, so you're using less clay. It also conducts heat for when you're baking as well. I understand after I've made this initial one, so you can see I'm getting the shape of the head with that back cranial cap and the front of the face. So this is basically your skeleton, is the armature. And I attached the wire to it. Now I understand after I did this, I realised, right, so you need more of a twist on the wire so it's more sturdy. I need to get myself a proper armature block as well, or make one actually, which I might do. Which is effectively a piece of wood with holes in that will hold the wire, so it's more the armature's more steady, so you can turn it around and obviously manipulate it while you're adding and taking bits of clay off. But you can see what I'm going for here. So I tape this down with masking tape. I've read on a forum, I think it was on Reddit somewhere, saying that, you know, masking tape's good because you can, obviously when you're baking this, it won't affect the sculpture or anything like that. So I'm getting a rough idea of shape for the face. You can see here. And considering it's my first proper armature, unfortunately, as I say, because I haven't got an armature base, it's now heavily blue tacked onto my painting handle that I use for miniatures. But you can see there it's roughly the shape, so you're bulking out the shapes on this. So I've got the front sort of long part of the face where the mouth would be, and the back of the head. First step is getting some of the Fimo, conditioning the clay so it's softer and easier to manipulate, and putting a thin coat on before I start bulking out all the details. Right, so now that the armature's covered, I'll mark out roughly where I want the eyes to be. on the front of the head there. And now I'm just blocking out major shapes before I start blending everything in together. Again, not sure if this is the right thing to do, or do you add lots of clay and then cut it back? But this is what I went for originally. So I'm blocking out the nose bone, the underside of the eyelids, the side of the sort of where on a human would be the sort of bottom of the jaw, things like that, the upper eyelid there, and just blocking all this out with lumps of clay. So it does look a bit strange at first, like a weird Zorro mask or something. And then from there I start to go in and smooth things over. And again, so the chin, that gets moved around and changed a lot, and I end up adding more and less and taking away detail from that, and adding more clay, taking it away until I'm happy with it. The gels as well get quite a bit of clay put on, so I can start adding some detail into them. But after the initial, so that's the initial sort of putting all the pieces together of where I want the detail. Now we're going with the ball stylus to start smoothing everything out and adding the very basic details, so where like the main grooves are going to be for the eyes, where the brows are, things like that. I just go in there and take my time, and it goes through multiple changes. I elongate the chin, and then I cut it back, and then add it back on until I'm absolutely happy with it. And again, just going in, adding a bit of definition on the underside of the eyelids, and trying to keep this, for want of a better word, a nasal bone that'll be running from in the seam between both the eyes, just above the brows, right the way down to roughly where the mouth would be if it was a human. And you can see I'm just going in and adding this sort of prow where this nasal bone will be, and just blocking out the rough textures before I go in with more detail. And again here, so I'm just adding some of the higher details on the brow, and this sort of central bone that's going up the head that goes further up. And then I do change it slightly, and I decide to have an extra bump. The eyes, start shaping them out a bit more, trying to make the sockets as deep as I can, almost going right back to the foil. And again, this all changes after the initial bake, which is coming up. If anyone wants to try something like this, again, just give it a go. You're not going to get it right first time. I mean, you look at people who do these amazing sculpts, it's because they've been at it for years, and they've spent time to hone their craft. And that's what you need to do, is just take time with it. Like, I've learnt so much doing this one particular bust. I mean, looking at it on the desk as I'm editing this, I'm happy with it. Could it be better? 100%. Definitely could. I could do so much more with it, add lots more detail. But I've learnt a lot just by doing this one bust and trying to do something that's more detailed and less cartoony than other things I've done in the past on the channel. And then you see when this comes after on the next episode, so that'll be after this initial bake, a lot of it's changed again. And again, I'll go through some of the issues I've had with the Fimo clay as well. But you can see even here I'm still going back and messing about with that chin. Don't seem to be 100% happy with it. But yeah, overall, as a project, quite happy with it. As a learning experience, amazing. Learnt so much already. But again, if there's anyone in any of the subscribers or or anyone who watches this, and you know of any other YouTubers that I can watch to, you know, get tips and things like that, let me know. It is something that I'm searching around for. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode, where so it's after this initial bake. There's some modifications and some problems I've had with the Fimo, which we'll go through, and then start blocking in all the major details, getting the neck and the shoulders down, and then putting it on an actual base, ready to base coat. So thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next episode.